I'm preaching about roses this morning because it's summertime and the roses are out. I love roses. I love the song, Yellow Rose of Texas, now that I'm a Texan. I moved into a house that had a ready-made rose garden, which I'd never had before because my mother had told me that roses were hard to grow. You had to spray a lot of chemicals on them, and so I just hadn't wanted to bother, even though I loved gardening in other ways. But there was this rose garden along the sunny southern side of the house, and I just noticed it year after year, and it did fine without me, really. I deadheaded them and pruned them back and when you were supposed to prune them. Whenever Martha Stewart said prune them, I did it. And I thought a lot about the medieval mystic Hildegard of Bingen, who talked about the greening breath. She says, the breath of the air makes the earth fruitful. Thus the air is the soul of the earth, moistening it and greening it. And I love that phrase, the greening of the earth, and she talks a lot about the soul greening the human being and how that energy comes up through you. And I was watching it happen with the roses, and they seemed really happy in the heat, which I was not. And I always felt kind of crabby and overwhelmed in the heat. And you'd see these people, these families on television, you know, going floating and splashing around and having cookouts and generally looking well-groomed and well-fed and financially stable. And their animals were always, you know, doing the right thing. And I felt a little bit of a mess with two small children compared to those people on TV, which is always a losing proposition when you're going to be comparing yourself to TV people. So, but summer has always been a kind of a hard time, and so I was wishing for that greening breath in me and thinking I would love that. And I was imagining myself as one of those roses out there, and I was thinking maybe I don't know why this occurred to me, but it occurred to me that maybe the roses are kind of happy when they're buds, little tightly coiled little buds. And maybe as they gently toss in the breeze and get warmed by the sun, they freak out a little bit when their petals start to loosen and come apart. And they think, what's happening? And maybe they try to hold the bud closed. Maybe they try to keep from blossoming because they don't know, you know, it's the first time out. They don't know what's happening, and you know, maybe you just can't hear them screaming, but maybe they. And it occurred to me that perhaps in my life there were times like that when I thought everything was together. You know how it's kind of cyclical and temporary. You have everything together and then there it goes and falls apart again. But I thought maybe instead of thinking of it as falling apart, I could think of it as blossoming, and maybe I could understand that the same rhythm that the roses go through, where you are the sprout and then you're the flower, the bud, the flower, then your petals just fall off, which I know you know that feeling. And they're lying on the ground all over you, all over the fire ant mound that's right at your feet. But then there's the seed that can, you know, have infinitely more roses in it. And it's also good for you if you make tea out of it. So the seed time in a person's life is also a time when you can be very nourishing to other people. And it's a time we all have to go through. And then the seed falls to the ground, which is very sad. Only you know that they'll be up again. There'll be more. That's nature's way. And we learn a lot from nature about how we are because we're part of nature. And so I thought maybe I can feel the sun on my face and kind of surrender to the loosening of things and think of it as blossoming. And I know there are some people who don't go through that. There are people who are kind of like evergreens, and they're fine all the time in every season, and they just seem to chug along evergreen and beautiful in the same way all the time. And other people really do go through this, put down your roots, get the sprout, get the flower. Oh, I love the flower. Oh, man, there go my petals. And I don't know which one you are. But I decided that I wanted to find out more about roses, and I did a little research, and I found out, and when they're in so many songs, and they're in so many poems, they're in so many religions, they're a very powerful symbol. And the first rose fossils that they found, the earliest ones they found, are in Colorado and in Oregon, and they're 32 million years old. 32 million years ago, we had roses. They were like the East Asian roses. They were simple. They weren't the American beauty rose, but they were roses nonetheless. The first record we have of the kind that we think of as a rose, the kind that's on the front of your bulletin, is in a very stylized fresco at the temple in Knossos in Greece, and that's from the 16th century BCE, before the Common Era, the 16th century BCE. And we think maybe they come from East Asia. We don't know. But in the Hindu religion, the goddess Lakshmi was said to have been born from a rose that had 108 large petals and 1,008 small ones. The beautiful Lakshmi. So the rose is a symbol, which means it can evoke multi-layered and complex meaning. You use symbols when you want to talk about something that is kind of abstract and difficult to understand, and something also that is connected to other things, like this. The rose is beautiful, and also it can hurt you. Okay, so human beings look at that, and you think about all the many experiences that are beautiful and can hurt you. So a rose can just symbolize all of those things. It's a rich and sturdy symbol in that it can carry so many meanings. When you think, what is beautiful and painful at the same time, you might just start at the top and go, well, life. Khalil Gibran says, the optimist sees the rose and not its thorns. The pessimist stares at the thorns, oblivious to the rose. When you think what's welcoming and forbidding at the same time, you might say creativity, because anyone who's ever tried to make anything, draw anything, make a dance a dance, make a painting, make a business, create anything, you have these stages that you go through where you think, ooh, this is a beautiful idea, I could do that, and then you have the stage where you go, why did I think I could do this? It's going very wrong. And then you have the self-doubt, the thorns of self-doubt that you should have, because that's what makes your art better. You have, is this good enough? Did I do this right? Is this okay? Am I satisfied with this? And most artists are not satisfied ever. And so the thorns and the beauty go along together in art and creativity. You could say progress is like a rose because it's beautiful, what you're going for, but there's always resistance to change. There are always people who say, oh, I liked it better the other way. Don't do that anymore. Let's just keep things the same. Anybody who's tried to change themselves as a human being, you know that your family pretty much, even though they've always suggested politely that you change, as soon as you do, they give you a lot of signals to change back because you're upsetting everything. When you think about something that's gorgeous and can make you bleed, everybody says, well, love, of course. Love is a perfect thing for the rose to carry as a symbol. The rose has been a symbol of love from the ancient days. It was sacred to Aphrodite, to Venus. The rose naturally, because of that, became connected with the femaleness of God in the early Christian church It was given to Mary as a symbol, since Mary usually was given all the characteristics of the goddess of that particular geographical area. So Mary and the rose have been linked in Christianity forever, and a lot of girls are named Rosemary or Mary Rose because of the rose belonging to Mary. And so roses symbolize a lot of different kinds of love. Pure love is symbolized by the white rose for some reason. Pink, first love. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may, the poet Robert Herrick says to the virgins. Old time is still a-flying. So my dad would hear that. He was the worst male basher in the whole world. As a mother of sons, I've learned to disapprove of male bashing very much, but my dad was the worst. And he used to say, if any boys tell you gather ye rosebuds while ye may, just say I'm not gathering any rosebuds today with you. Because they only want one thing. True love, red roses. Cheating, yellow roses. I was very sad to find that out, because yellow roses are my favorite. And I grew up on my granddaddy's kind of gentleman farm where we didn't actually grow anything that took any work, but it was beautiful. And there was a split rail fence down in front of the house before you got to the pasture and the pond, and climbing all over the fence were beautiful yellow roses. I just grew up with them. They were my absolute favorite. And to find out that they symbolize cheating, I don't think they do in Texas. Do you? Okay, we'll declare. One friend reminded me of a poem by Walter de la Mare that ends, "Oh, no man knows through what wild centuries roves back the rose." Many wild centuries ago, the rose was a symbol of secrecy. So if you were having a meeting, sometimes you'd hang a rose on the doorknob if no one was supposed to say what happened inside that room. It was like executive session. Sometimes they'd hang a rose from the ceiling, so you were under the rose, sub rosa. Under the rose was where you had this secret session. Some meeting chambers even had roses painted on the ceiling, so they were always there. Whenever you're in this room, it's secret, whatever you're talking about, the sub rosa meetings. The number 5 is associated with a rose because each layer has 5 petals, and 5 is a sacred number because it's the 4 elements of earth, air, fire, water, plus spirit. So that makes 5. And the human being, when standing with arms outstretched and legs spread, is a 5-pointed star. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where the pentagram comes from. I don't think that's where the Pentagon comes from, but the pentagram symbolizes human being, earth, air, fire, water, plus spirit. The rose has been linked to the 5 senses because they're beautiful to see and they're lovely to smell, and you can taste them in many, especially in Indian food. You have this rose taste that's wonderful, Middle Eastern food, and I'm not sure about hearing. As I said, I can't hear the roses screaming. Maybe some people can. Politics and struggle have been symbolized by the rose, which is a symbol of the Social Democratic Party in many countries. It was the symbol that the students in Paris pinned onto their clothes in 1968 when they had the big protests, because what you're going for is so beautiful, and yet you know that there will be blood on the way. In the early 1900s, James Oppenheim wrote a poem that was used during the textile strikes in those days in Massachusetts, and the women from the textile mills would march and they would sing, "Hearts starve as well as bodies, give us bread, but give us roses." Many of you Grateful Dead fans know about their album American Beauty, and it's one of their most well-known albums. Robert Hunter is a lyricist that's best known for his work with the Grateful Dead, and he was being interviewed by a professor for his book on the Grateful Dead, professor of the University of Colorado, and he was asking Robert Hunter, the lyricist, about why it showed up in so many of their songs. And Robert Hunter said, well, I've got this one spirit that's laying roses on me. Roses, roses, can't get enough of those bloody roses. The rose is the most prominent image in the human brain as to delicacy, beauty, short-livedness, thorniness. It's a whole. There's no better allegory for, dare I say it, life than roses. The poet Dante also uses this rose as a symbol of the whole universe, the expanding cosmos symbolized by the rose. One woman I know uses roses in her personal life in that she imagines whenever she's going into a difficult situation that she's covered in roses. She makes herself an imaginary cloak all of roses, and she puts it on when she's headed into a difficult situation and feels protected by the roses and inspired. Rumi writes, in the driest, whitest stretch of pain's infinite desert, I lost my sanity and found this rose. So whether you are evergreen or whether you are dry as a stick right now, or whether you are feeling thorny or velvety or blossomy, I would like to invite you to imagine a rose, either in your heart or in your mind. There's a chant that I would like to share with you now. It's from the contemplative Taizé tradition of Roman Catholicism. This is a chant that you just sing over and over and over, and I'm going to ask us to sing it as part of the sermon, maybe 5 or 6 times through. I will tell you in my voice, in the microphone, that this is the last time, so you don't get caught singing when nobody else is. And the words are, slowly grows the rose within. That's pretty simple, because a chant has to be simple. And so I'm going to sing it, and you join me if you care to. You're welcome to sing harmony if you want to. You're welcome to do whatever you like with this, but just close your eyes and breathe deeply and imagine the rose. Slowly grows the rose within. 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 Slowly grows the last time. Slowly grows the rose within. Slowly grows the rose within. You sounded beautiful.